So, the next film we're going to review is Preparations to Be Together for an Unknown Period of Time, directed by Lili Horvat. And I have to write that down because I would never remember that. But, Simon, tell us a little bit about this film.
Yeah, preparations to be together for an unknown period of time. It follows Marta, who is a talented neurosurgeon who's been working in New Jersey, in America. At the start of the film, she's arriving in Budapest because she's left her job in New Jersey and moved over to Budapest to be with this man that she met at a neurosurgery conference. But when she arrives in Budapest, she goes to the hospital where this man works. She attempts to make contact with him, and he doesn't know her. He says, "I don't know who you are. We've never met before. What are you doing here?" And essentially, the film follows that struggle between her remembering this man, her uprooting her entire life to be with this man, and the man not recognizing her, not knowing who she is. So there's sort of hints of Kafka to the story and the tone, this sense that something is off, something's gone wrong. There's no clear indication as to how or why. And this is the question that drives the film. This is the ambiguity sort of at the heart of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And apart from the fact that it reminded me so much of the time I actually got to spend about a month over a course of a year in Budapest. How beautiful Budapest is. What does everybody think about this film?
If I was trying to describe this film to anyone, I'd sum it up in the sense that it's a film that after 10 minutes you think you've sort of got it figured out. And then as you reach the halfway point, you realise that you've got it completely wrong. And then it gets round that way until the end, until it kind of, there's a summary for you. It kind of, it clears everything up for you. But you go around all these kind of corners with it, not really knowing not really knowing where you are with the characters in it. It's a very much like a subtle mood piece. It's very emotionally driven in the way that it composes the narrative. You spend a lot of the film through the gaze of the central character, Dr. Marta, and most of the time you're never really sure how reliable a narrator Marta is. You have this mysterious allure of the film in many ways that kind of functions from the contradictions in character versus action. Because at many points when you follow kind of Marta's behaviour, which can manifest into quite disturbing behaviour, almost kind of obsessive and stalkerish, and you almost expect the narrative and the mood to flip in ways that it never really does. It's very clever how the film operates in this way, when what you see never conforms to the kind of preconceived semiotics that are attached to the different areas of this film. In particular, the film kind of uses Marta's kind of cool blue eyes as the focal visual aid in the film, because as she's recalling all her experiences to her therapist, etc., you have this close up of Marta's eyes, and I think when you have kind of, to me, when you see a lot of consistent close ups and when it's fixated on someone's eyes, it kind of traces a lot back to old horror cinema and horror culture. So you almost get kind of you almost feel a sinister element with this character without, I think, just from tracing that nostalgia back in your mind about where you've seen these shots before. So it very much kind of derives this mystery from the aesthetics that is lit within it, but it kind of leaves the script open until the climax. I think it's an incredibly interesting film. I thought the more you go back and think about it, the more you remember parts of it you think that you might have missed, but have almost kind of unconsciously retained in the back of your mind. And I think for me, it's one that I want to revisit quite soon, because I think that there's more to it than can be digested within the first watch. I think there's much more that you will take from it from each viewing. I think it's one of those films, I think, that will function differently and each time you see it. I really enjoyed it, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd agree with all of that. I think one of the main things I enjoyed about this film is really trying to figure out what the relationship is between these characters. It kind of, and I think Steph summed it up pretty well at the start when she said that, like, you think you've got a handle on it and what's going on, and then it shifts, but it doesn't. I wouldn't say it's sort of like. I wouldn't say it flips completely. It's more just it is a very twisty film in that your understanding of people's interactions and even kind of what they're thinking switches subtly over time. And I think the main driver of that is Natasha Stork in that lead role. She's balancing, I think, very well this ability to appear quite vulnerable, and you can see emotions on her face, whilst also being fairly inscrutable. It's kind of hard. It's very easy rather to believe that the people within the narrative and within the story find her a little bit hard to figure out, but we as the audience can kind of see the emotional beats that she's hitting as she, is told that, like, as the guy says that he doesn't know her, and then kind of like these reactions that she gets about, like, you're moving back from the States to here, why are you doing that? And nobody really being able to understand the motivations. I think the way the camera lingers on certain images helps with that. There's a big thing about, so the opening of the film is basically her going to the Liberty Bridge in Budapest, and I'm going to congratulate Simon on his excellent Hungarian pronunciation there. I am not going to try and do it, because if I try and pronounce it the proper way, then I sound like Sean Connery after he's had a few drinks, right? So I'm not going to do that. But basically, the film opens with this, her looking to meet this guy at the bridge in Budapest. The flat that she eventually rents, like shortly afterwards, early on in the film, has a view of the bridge, and it's just you get the sense of the kind of the central way that this entire endeavor and this pursuit in her head is occupying, and quite how central it is to her motivations and everything that she is doing. The way that the relationships turn after that, I find very interesting, and I think one of the pleasures of this film is actually trying to figure that out. I have no doubt that it could probably frustrate some people. It is quite opaque in that sense, but for me, the way that it is approached visually in terms of framing that central performance makes it a very engaging film to watch for me.
Yeah, the first note I wrote down was, this makes me really want to go to Budapest again, because it depicts the city beautifully, and I think the city is central to what the film wants to say about sort of dualism, about dividing into two, because at the center of the narrative are these two inconsistent interpretations of the world. One where Marta knows this man, and one where this man does not know Marta. And I think that emphasis on dualism really comes through in the first hour of the film. János, the man, even writes a book on the philosophy of neurosurgery. Is the mind in the matter of the brain, or is the mind an abstract immaterial presence? And I thought the first hour of the film was terrific at drawing that out and drawing on this ambiguity and this tension that Jim and Steph have both mentioned. I think after that, the last act of the film, it falls apart a bit in its effort to get to a resolution. I would have liked more ambiguity. I liked not knowing what was going on, and in rushing to get to explain what's going on, I was disappointed by the end, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I agree, and I like that point that you said about Budapest and the parallels. I mean, the Buddha and the pest or whatever. But I totally I totally was captivated by this film, and I think in like a, I don't know if you call it Gen Y or Gen Z kind of gaslighting word or whatever. It's just the idea of memory, and what happens in relationships, and how we perceive certain situations, and how we second guess ourselves through life's changes or through decisions. And I think the primary character was an incredible thing. I was captivated with the whole thing, and then I did really get into the romance. I really got into the ambiguity that was going on. I don't know if it ended like you said. I don't know if it ended on the best note. But as Steph originally mentioned, the fact that we're twisting and turning and trying to figure out a very complicated character, but a character that keeps you interested through that whole process, and that, you know, that we keep learning more. I think that's a really it was a really fascinating aspect to this story and this film.
Yeah, I'd be keen to see it again because it was really intriguing, and that central performance is terrifically captivating.
I think I'm going to revisit as well. I think it's one of those films that you will get something new each time you leave it after the experience. I think that I'm not incredibly convinced that what I take away from it now will be fixed afterward. I think when I watch it again, it may completely alter, and I quite like that about it. I think it's quite flexible in the way that you can receive it and you can take things from it. I think it makes it quite an open piece of cinema to kind of take what you need from it and leave things where it be. So yeah, I would definitely recommend if people that, you know, people that like kind of mood-based cinema and things that are quite subtly mysterious and character-driven. It's definitely one to watch out for. It's a very unique piece of cinema, I would say.
Great. And so, Jim, can you remind us when that film is coming out on online on VOD?
That will be coming out via Curzon Home Cinema on the 19th
of March.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So definitely check it out. It's pretty much a unanimous agreement that we like that film.